recording. So sorry about that, guys. Well, a couple people. Glad to have you guys with us for our first episode. And let me just pull up my notes real quick. All right. So as you guys know, this is our first episode. We are a new webcast called Analysis. And what we do is we focus on Canadian teams, mainly, and we will be covering the big teams and big events as well. But the idea is to be something similar to what RoboZone is like in Michigan, where they kind of have weekly rankings of Canadian, or specifically their Michigan teams, so in our case, Canadian teams, and in-depth information on all of our different events that are going to be hosted in the coming year for Canada. And we are also going to be covering our off-season events. We have 3, and they will be in November-ish, so we'll have probably a few shows then too. So today is all about IRI. Kind of our goal for this show is to, once again, focus a little bit on the Canadian teams first. There are a lot of non-Canadian teams that are here that we're going to talk a lot about later on in the show, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Reminder that these are all an opinion piece, so we're doing our best. What we think is correct. Just because we say something is what we think is correct doesn't mean it's true. And if you guys disagree with us, like GameSense says, go out and prove us wrong on the field. So that being said, I'm Brennan. I'm a mentor for team number 4476, the Waffles. I've been in first for, this is coming up on my 11th year. I started in FLL on a pretty successful team, went to World Championships twice on that team, and moved to FRC in 2009, where I joined another local team and eventually moved to now 4476. Been here for 4 or 5 years now. I'm coming on my 5th year, I guess. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And as you guys can see, we also have Griffin here today, and he is. Yeah,
I'm Griffin. I've been involved in FRC coming on to my 4th year. I'm also on 4476 Waffles, except I'm a student. I started with FRC, but I've also been involved in FLL, starting a team and mentoring a team a year ago, as well as being involved with VEX since a year ago. So FRC has kind of been my starter into a series of robotics programs.
So yeah, let me just pop this out. All right. So, like I said, hopefully you guys enjoy the show. It's our second time kind of running through this, but first time live. So it'll be interesting to work to see how the audience interacts. If you have any questions at any point, just put them in the chat and we'll get around to answering them when we can. So the first thing that we want to have on our list is basically, as we're covering IRI, the first most important thing is the rule updates, which, Griffin, I don't know if you have them pulled up right now.
Yeah, I already have them pulled up.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're basically just going to work through them. We'll just discuss them quickly if we think they're beneficial for IRI or if we think it will hurt the gameplay. So the first one we're going to start with is the tower strength is being raised to 12 for all matches. So this was also done in championships. At that point, I kind of disagreed with it just because at championships there's a wider pool of teams. So the thing with that was since some weaker alliances would be formed, there would be less motivation to play defense because you would already know they won't get the capture. So if we play defense, it's not going to make too much of a big difference. But with IRI, with such a compact pool of teams, you're going to have a lot of good alliances, and playing defense will still be beneficial because most matches there's a chance at a capture if you don't do something about it.
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts basically on that. Champs was 10 balls. This is 12, so it's that extra step. And it's just to make it a little bit harder to get that capture, make sure that the game's interesting, and maintaining that excitement over getting the capture, which is kind of one of the big draws for Stronghold this year.
Yep. All right, so next rule. So defenses will be randomly selected or placed per the details below. The placement will be defined in advance and will change every 10 to 12 matches. So basically, there's no audience selection of defenses. To put it simply, I am extremely for this just because it was fun, sort of, for the first 2 matches or so, where maybe the first regional even, where people are yelling for the defenses, but after that kind of got boring. And I think that just makes it a bit more interesting. At this level, your robot should be able to do almost all the defenses, so it shouldn't hurt any teams particularly. Also, something to note, there is no drawbridge or portcullis because it was a safety concern, and drawbridge because IRI removed it.
And I think part of the reason why IRI removed it, right, is the kind of petitioning on Chief Delphi and other places for people not picking the drawbridge because it's such a visual hazard. And, I think it's probably not going to make a huge difference, but especially at some of the regionals or some of the events that I was seeing, I did see it come into play strategically where a team would pick a drawbridge. It's kind of a last-ditch effort to try and make some sort of impact in the game. And sometimes it would actually, impact the other lines enough so that their vision would be impaired. I will miss that a little bit, but the fact is that's probably not going to affect any of the teams that are at IRI, and it's just going to reduce the quality of gameplay. So yeah, sounds like a pretty decent rule.
All right, so next one. So defenses will be selected by the opposing alliance in eliminations. So basically that just re-adds a component of strategy for choosing defenses for your team while not delaying it excessively in qualifications. So I'm for this rule. Additionally, they choose all the layout of the defenses, including the middle one, and except the low bar, of course. So that just keeps strategy in it for eliminations, which allows a bit more diversity in gameplay there. So I'm for that rule change.
Yep, pretty much the exact same thing, to be honest, All right. Not much to say about that.
Yep. And next rule, so G21, so a robot contacting carpet in the opponent's secret passage may not contact opposing robots who are in contact with the carpet in the secret passage, regardless of who initiates the contact. And Brennan's going to start off with that one because he has a bit more to say about it.
Yeah, so the change in this rule, the specific change is before your opponent didn't have to be inside the secret passageway in order to give you a foul. So IRI's intent for this rule is to prevent people from going to run over and touch an opposing robot that's in the secret passageway in order to draw a foul and get those easy 5 points. So now they made it so that you actually have to be in the secret passageway with the intent that you're probably there to pick up a ball or do something offensively, not just some defensive foul draw. The thing about this, though, is it makes certain defense styles much more viable and safer to play. Specifically, the neutral zone defense, specifically the variant that 610 played at GTR East in the semis for the first match. I don't know if many people saw that, but that was kind of like the first revision of their IRI kind of midfield defense, which was much more effective but way more risky, and ended up losing the match because of penalties that were drawn because they were inside the zone while somebody was touching them. But now, since that doesn't count unless the other opponent's actually in the zone, I think you can see a lot of very disruptive neutral zone defense in front of the secret passageway, blocking people from being inside the secret passageway to pick up the balls, since that's really where your ball source is. And it'll be interesting to see if any teams pick up on this. And yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. I mean, overall, same lines, but I'm reasonably against this rule just because the biggest way to counter the strategy that Brennan proposed is to do the exact same thing. At that point, you kind of kill the excitement of the game. So I don't think it's the best rule change, but if no teams take advantage of it, then I guess there's no problem with it.
Yeah, I think it's really abusable, and it's pretty hard to like. It makes it way more forgiving, right? Because
Yeah.
in general, you can tell if the other robot's going to be in the secret passageway, so you can play defense for longer and block their balls in, make sure that they aren't able to score.
Yep, exactly. All right, so next rule. So driving over or getting stuck on a boulder while holding another boulder will not be a violation of G38. So I think we can all agree on this one and that it's definitely a beneficial rule change because there were a lot of changing calls on whether or not it was a foul if you had a boulder in your robot and then you drove over one. So overall, I think it is beneficial.
We will be outside.
Yeah, I mean, for that, I think a lot of the problem with it was the refs had to make hard calls, right? They weren't able to keep an eye on whether or not the ball was under a robot and the crossings and whether or not they like passed the ball properly from zone to zone. There's just a whole bunch of different things, and that was kind of the thing that got dropped. And sometimes teams would be called for it and some teams wouldn't. And it's good to see that that's being removed since it kind of sucks if you're driving on top of a ball anyways. There isn't really a team that's going to purposely try and do that. I guess the intent of the rule at the beginning for first was to prevent like a team from like hoarding all the balls into a corner and then just like driving on top of them or something crazy. Yeah. But I don't think you're going to see anything like that at IRI.
No.
It's not too viable as a strategy, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
And I think he froze.
Yeah. So, I froze?
Yeah, you froze a little bit, but that's okay.
All right, that's fine. So, all right, so no change to defense crossings for wrecking points. Not much to say here. It's just claiming that they're keeping it the same, so nothing really to say here. A 5-pound weight allowance is provided, so basically adding for off-season modifications, so maybe a hanger if you had some extra weight, that kind of thing. I don't see a problem with it. IRI has done it in the past, and it's gone well. So I think it just allows teams to expand on what are already pretty good robots.
Hang on, we're dropping a few frames. Yeah, so
We good?
okay, maybe. Man.
What happened?
Okay, we're good.
All right, we're good.
Yeah,
All right.
just started dropping frames. So,
Yep.
once again, like that's pretty standard. That's standard for IRI, and a lot of off-season events have adapted that same rule. It's just leniency. We want the teams to be actually able to play, and they're not going to, stop you from playing if you're 0.01 over the weight limit.
Yep. All right, so next rule, so draft order 1-8, 1-8, and then 8-1. So basically, it's not the snake alliance selection from typical regionals, but I don't see a problem with this, but especially with the compact pool of teams at IRI, because in reality, the alliances won't differ too much from alliance to alliance just because the teams are relatively close, so you won't see a big difference from the first alliance to maybe the third alliance. Of course, from the first to eighth, there will be a difference, but you see that almost every regional, so it's not really that big of a problem in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, IRI has been doing this for a really long time, and, some people are really strong advocates of that, and that the number one seed got the number one seed, so they should get some sort of advantage because of it. So that's kind of just playing towards that too, and really the gap between the teams isn't that big, so it doesn't end up being like a super overpowered number one alliance normally.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next one. So G13 exceptions. So G13 applies, however, after a robot is fully crossed to defense and returned to the midline, a robot may cross the midline with no foul. So basically, that's just encouraging two-ball autonomouses, which allows for development and encourages that kind of thing. So I am for that rule. Could be used maliciously for stopping two-ball autos, but Like you could go across and run around and knock down boulders out of place, but really that's just strategy, and I think it's worth it to play that rule if you know that you're going to get hurt by several 2-ball autos.
Yeah, I think this is a really good change. I think it adds another layer of strategy to the autonomous mode, and I like interacting autonomous modes actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so similar to like 2014 where you could have the goalie robot, it's like a minimalistic interaction that adds a whole another like layer of strategy to either evade a defensive autonomous or counteract collisions, or like 2013 with the battles over the mid frisbees. That was really exciting too. Seeing especially the 469 987 series on I think it was Archimedes in 2013. Just seeing how the teams would like battle over those middle balls in autonomous. It's really interesting. So yeah, I really like that change, and I think it's also useful for non-2-ball auto capable robots or programmers or whatever. Some teams maybe you can't get a 2-ball accurate enough, or you don't feel comfortable with that, and a lot of teams do go over the back over the defenses to get prepped for a ball pickup, and it shouldn't be a very big stretch for these teams to just drive a little bit forwards and run their intake, and maybe they pick up a ball in autonomous, so they're that much closer to scoring a goal coming out of the gate into telly-up.
Yep, exactly. All right, so last one. So in eliminations, up to 3 tied match scores between 2 alliances will be replayed. So I think that's just linking to what went down on Einstein about tied matches, and I don't see a problem with that. I think it's fair to play for the win and allow teams to do that, but at some point you need to cap it off, and that rule also does that. So I'm for that rule change.
And context for people who don't know, that was kind of implemented after 2010, where there was a whole bunch of ties, often in eliminations, and it was kind of dragged on the match schedule. Things would go to like 5, 6, 7 matches because of so many ties, and just because the game was so low scoring and it was really easy to tie. This game, easier to tie than a lot of games, but still like not even close compared to 2010. So yeah. I think it's fine. I don't think you're going to see more than 1 tie or 2 ties in elims.
Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do now is we are going to turn our focus to specifically Canadian teams at IRI, and then after that we're going to proceed on to top teams and what we think are underrated teams at IRI. So what we're going to, so there's 7 teams attending IRI, and they're all from Canada and all from Ontario specifically. So pretty decent pool out of 69 teams, not huge but not bad. So the first team we're going to talk about, as hopefully most of you guys know them, so 11-14. They didn't have the strongest start to the season. Their robot had a lot of accuracy problems and that kind of thing with their shooter. But throughout the season, they've really progressed. They've developed a working hanger and about a regional making it work. It was built beforehand. They've worked on their shooter accuracy continuously, and their intake had a little bit of problems, but that seems to be working just fine now. Quite a good breacher, and I think they'll definitely be a competitive force, especially if they've continued to improve at the rate they were during the competition season.
Yeah, same things. I think 11-14, lots of people are, a little bit down on them because they had a little bit of a rougher season, but, they're still very, very strong, and you're definitely not going to be seeing them outside of eliminations. They're definitely going to be playing. Where they're going to be playing, I don't know, but whatever alliance they're on, they're definitely going to make a large impact on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the next team on our list is 12-41. They had an exceptional season. They did very well throughout the season. They were a tall robot, and they could shoot into the high goal with their turret shooter, which could shoot essentially almost everywhere in the courtyard. And the biggest thing about the robot that was that once they got in their shooting spot, you really weren't going to move them, and you couldn't really block them because they were tall. Great intake. Their auto center on their ball before they went to the shot was also fantastic. The one thing they didn't have was a hang, but with their shooter rate, it really didn't matter and didn't make much of an impact. So definitely a competitive force, and I would be extremely surprised if they did not make eliminations.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, something crazy would have to happen for 1241 to not make eliminations. They're just a wickedly awesome team. I would probably say the most accurate shot in Hall First. They line up, and once they're lined up, then they're good to go, and they like barely ever miss. So, maybe the only team rivaling them is like 51-72 that they could even like come close to their shot accuracy. Yeah. Just really strong team, great people behind the glass, great coach with Duvashan, and great team, strategy team, making sure that they make those right calls. That's, I think, one of the things that is going to separate the teams and their calls, making sure that they pick the right teams and use the teams effectively as usual, but it's even more so in IRI because the field's pretty compact.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you want to talk about 1310?
Yeah, sure. So 1310 is Runnymede Robotics. They're one of the teams in Canada that I think, or possibly even in the world, that really improves over the regular competition season. They're really good at getting better from competition to competition. You saw, I think at the beginning of their season, or end of bag day, they were not fully put together, and they're the team that always gets things together, pulls out all the stops, and is able to improve constantly over the season, making sure that their autonomous works really well, and then adding their hangar for North Bay, where they did pick up the win. I would be surprised to see them not make a large improvement for IRI again, be it through autonomous. I hear they are working on a new shooter that's better, so if we see that, then hopefully we will see them excel. And they're a strong team, they're a close shot, and I think they'll make a decent impact in eliminations, and they could seed well if they have a good schedule as well.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that says improvement, it's the fact that they ranked higher at the Worlds in their division as opposed to their first regional, so that's definitely hinting towards major improvement throughout the season. So definitely a team to watch for, constantly improving. And yeah, that's 1310.
Okay, let me just figure out who's next on the list.
2013.
2013, right. So 2013 is the Cybergnomes. You guys may know them as the orange, hat team. And one of they're a really strong team. They've been getting much, much better recently. They had a really strong year in 2014, a decently strong year in 2013, and 2016 maybe even their best season yet. They have a low bar robot, shoots really fast, basically straight line trajectory, really accurate shot, nice camera vision that works really well. They're able to make those shots when they're undefended really well. And they were working on they did have a hangar that was introduced for the North Bay Regional, so their second event. I didn't get the chance to watch much of them at Worlds, but I'm expecting them to have improved that even more, and hopefully be able to pull up that hang every single time with their measuring tape hanger.
Yep. All right, I think you covered that pretty well. So next on our list is 2056, so OP Robotics. I'm sure all of you heard about them this year with their Einstein finalist performance. They had a great season overall, won a bunch of regionals. Consistent shooter, they could shoot from the outer works, they could shoot close up, they could basically shoot from anywhere, they had a hangar, they did it all, they could breach. So super impressive. Some people kind of short-turned them or said they weren't having the best season when they lost in Waterloo, so they lost their 23 streak. But definitely shouldn't be short-term because Waterloo was arguably the most aggressive competition in first this year, so definitely nothing to be ashamed of losing at such a tough regional. So great performance, and definitely going to be eliminations.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Einstein finalists, you're going to expect big things from them going into IRI, coming out really strong as the Alliance captain and taking that last match to a tie to only lose by tiebreakers to the eventual world champions. So, really strong team. Really excited to see what they they do. I know that they put a lot of effort into their drive practice, and I know their driver Sam is, really dedicated to that. He's only been driving for 2 years now, so the fact that he's this strong, really shows that they're a program of making sure that their drivers and like strategy team and everything is well put together, and it works really well for them. So yeah, very strong team.
Yep.
Okay, so 3683 is our second last team. Team Dave. You guys probably heard a lot about them, especially at the beginning of the season at GTR Central, where they pulled out the win as a low goal only robot. I remember seeing them for the first time on practice day for GTR Central and seeing them like solo breach and solo capture. Well, when it was 8 balls, but being able to solo breach and solo capture was really impressive. And if there's an alliance that maybe is struggling with this new 12 ball limit for the capture, this could be a really good pickup. Play defense, score a couple balls to fill up that 12 requirement. They have the hanger at the end that's really reliable, and they've had it working since the beginning of the season from match 1. So, I expect good things from them. Yeah, and we'll talk more about some of these teams as well later.
Yeah, I mean, they low goal, so they don't score a ton of points compared to high goalies. But the thing is, if you are busy defending a high goalie, they're just going to get in there score a ton of points and get rid of your tower strength really fast. So you don't want to leave them undefended. But if you do defend them, then you have a high goalie that's shooting. So basically, either way, they are going to score points and take down your tower most matches.
Or even just manipulate all the balls, feed a high goaler.
Yeah, exactly. They're extremely strong cyclers. So.
And so our last team is 4039, and they are Makeshift Robotics, the rainbow-colored shirts, one of the best team shirts and best practice day bumpers in all of First. I really love this team. They're really well put together, and they've been kind of underrated for the last few years. 2014, they got a lot of recognition, but again, I think they're underrated again this year. They're a really strong team. They've got a great outer work shot. Drive team's really smart. They know when to go for the high goals and when they need to go for the low goals to make sure that they get that those boulders for that capture. Programming solid. They hit their autonomous pretty much every time that I've seen, and yeah, really strong team.
Yep. All right, so the next thing that we're going to be moving into is our top 5 teams, or top 6, I think it worked out to be, but we just compiled our 2 top 5 lists.
We'll take this question first, real quick.
Third question?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, from Abdul. So, he says, how do you feel about the wear and tear? How do you feel the wear and tear will affect the teams? Some teams have gone to many events by the end of IRI and may be severely damaged. Yeah. Once again, our important thing to know, right, about FRC is the robots really aren't designed to go for, 200 matches or however many hours. I know that for our own team in 2014, we had put 3 competitions, four competitions or so, and probably 300 hours of driver practice at least, and by our last competition, last off season, we were having a lot of issues with, in the eliminations, basically everything broke. So we're kind of limping along. But this is a real issue, and it takes a really strong team to be able to recognize when things are starting to falter and replace them. Do I think it's going to be affect some teams? Yes. I don't think it'll affect the majority of the field, but I think you will see some teams, be it new drivers or robot that's slowly worn down, just performing a little bit worse perhaps than they had been in their regular season. Some teams are just less motivated when there's no world championships on the line, which is fair enough. So yeah, I don't know what you think, Griffin.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. Some teams may want to replace umpires, but of course, with parts there are money, there is money. And as Brendan covered, it's not the World Championship, so it's fair enough not to put a ton of expenses into it. I think you'll see teams that have really good build quality, carry through well, people that haven't just put on temporary fixes or have made those temporary fixes permanent. And yeah, I think it will be a generally well spread kind of disadvantage on all teams, so I don't think it will have a major impact on relative gameplay.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So, let me get this set up. So, what we did, just so that you guys know, is each of us came up with a top 5 list of teams that we thought were most likely to win IRI or do really well, be in the finals, basically. And we kind of amalgamated them, and then we kind of have a list of what happens to be 6, because there was a lot of parity in our teams, which makes sense. So, we'll hop over here, and let me get our video going.
And audio off this time, Brendan?
Yeah, it's off. All right, so our first team number on the 6th place is team number 179. I did not put them in my top 5, but they were very close, and Griffin ranked them 5th. That's not.
Yeah. Is it
Okay,
on?
so yeah.
So want me to talk about them since I ranked them? All right, yeah. So they started in week 0. They won their first regional. Definitely a competitive robot. They have a hang. They have a pop-up shooter that can also rotate. They have a pretty good intake that's also multi-purpose for breaching defenses. They've been a strong robot throughout the season. They had a few problems with accuracy early on, but they fixed that quickly. And I've heard rumors of improvement throughout, so hang shot, things like that. So I definitely think they'll be a competitive force at IRI that's been improving all the way from week 0 to off-season.
Yeah, and as you can see, hang on, I'm just going to refresh this. But as you guys could see, the 2-ball looked pretty solid. So, I mean, 179 is one of these teams that has always been strong the last few years. I think this is one of their better years. Just especially with if they can pull out this 2-ball and if it is reliable and they're able to make this work really well. And especially and their hang shot too. I can't stress how much the hang shot I think is so valuable to an alliance. Just being able to get that extra 5 points, you're making your shot, your time really count. And there's a few teams at IRI that are able to do this, some of which will be on this list.
Yep. All right, so we can move on to you.
Yep. So the next team, team number 5, or the 5th ranked team is team number 2481. And they are obviously one of the World Championship winning alliance members. And I think Griffin's actually frozen, but we will continue on while he hopefully figures that out. 2481 to me is one of the strongest teams. Whoops.
Oops, yeah, looks like I cut out there. All right. Is OBS already set up, or are we good to go?
Yeah, no, we're live.
Right. Is the layout still fine?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Sorry about that. I guess I just cut out there. So, all right, we can continue on then.
Okay, so I was just talking about 2481.
Yep.
And you're echoing a bit. Oh no, that's 1 second, guys. Oh, the joys of setting things up. All right, so 2041, ranked number 5. I put them as my number 4 team. Griffin did not put them in his top 5. And I guess I'll just talk about them a little bit. I think they're one of the strongest teams because they, once again, have one of the best shot accuracies in basically of any team. They have a really nice high release point. Love their pickup. Centers the ball really nicely. And they're just so reliable. They're not making mistakes. And they're able to put out that consistent high score every single time.
Yeah, I don't disagree that they're a competitive robot. The only reason I did not put them up there is just because I haven't heard a ton about their improvements, so I just decided to go with someone like 179 who have heard proof of improvements, but I have no doubt that they'll definitely be competitive, and I definitely think they deserve near the top 5 without a doubt.
So yeah, I mean, I hope to see them, go far in the eliminations, and we have some. We'll talk a little bit more about them, I guess, a little bit after.
Yep. All right. So moving on. So 330, Beach Bots, One Worlds, definitely a great team. I didn't put them as my top team, even though they won. But that usually applies to world champions. So definitely a good robot. I wouldn't say they're the best robot in the world, but I put them highly just because of the fact that they've really proven to respond well to situations, things that happen, like when they self-rated after they fell over. So really great driver reflexes that really puts them ahead of the game with new situations popping up, which you'll definitely see with a varying game like Stronghold with all these different scenarios. So I definitely think they'll be competitive at IRI.
Yeah. One of the things that really impressed me about 330 is obviously their driver ability, not just the obvious, like they recovered from the tip and stuff, but just the way that they move around the field is really impressive compared to pretty much every other team. They're just making the right calls. They're able to deal with defense, especially being a close shooter, and they're able to be harassed because they're not in the outer works. They really deal with that pretty well, and are able to still output those huge amount of points and score really well, which is why I put them as my number 5.
Yep.
All right, so our next team is 1241, and we talked a little bit about them earlier, but we will talk about some more things in a sec once I get their video up.
Yep.
Here we go. Okay, so 1241, obviously to me, there's a few things that stand out. Their autonomous is like super awesome. It almost always hits. They can go from like any position. They have their portcullis, which was really useful in the Worlds. Wouldn't surprise me if they have a sally port. I do not remember if they've actually shown it in season. I wouldn't be surprised if they have, but I'm sure they'll bring that out for IRI as well.
Yeah.
Being able to do their portcullis autonomous in the cases of if they need to. Just once again, really solid team, able to shoot from like anywhere in the field. That's why they're our number 3 team. I put them as my number 3, and Griffin had them as their number 2.
Yeah, so adding on to that, they're not just a high goal shooter. Unlike a lot of other robots, they're a very good high goal shooter, so they can shoot almost anywhere in the courtyard from what I've heard now. Basically, once they get in a spot, you can't defend them because they lock themselves down. You cannot block them because most robots are typically very short, and they have a outer work shot. I mean, they have a batter shot, so they can shoot very close, and you can't really get in between them. So definitely scary high goal to go against.
Okay, so number 2 on our list is team number 195. And Griffin, I think I shared the thing with you, so you should be able to talk about them.
Which one?
195.
Oh, yeah. So, 195, I did not have the pleasure of seeing them a ton this season, but they were definitely a competitive robot. They have a close-up shot, which is great. The reason I didn't have them as high as some of the robots is I've seen some problems throughout the season with their intake. So that's just given me a bit of concerns regarding consistency. But overall, their shot consistency is very good. It's just their intake that sometimes I question a little bit. They have, as you can see in the video, they have they have a shot near the low bar, as well as a batter shot. So they have diverse shooting ranges. So especially if they're not defended, they all have a lot of shooting options, so they can kind of mix around their strategy and play the role that their alliance needs.
Yeah, so this is actually video from Battle Cry, their most recent off-season event, where they really, took control and pulled out the wins, pairing up with Shaker Robotics. But yeah, I mean, 195 to me, I put them as their number one, mainly because they're such a strong two ball. I think they're the best two ball at IRI, and something like that is just going to go so far. I think with autonomous going to be a really important aspect of IRI in making sure that you're coming out ahead, starting right at the beginning, just making sure that you're always, have the lead and you're forcing the other team to try and catch up, which is always a good thing. Yeah, and like Griffin said, another aspect that I really love about their robot is that they can shoot from pretty much anywhere, just like 1241 to some degree. Like, obviously not as smoothly as 1241, but they have their mid court, they have their batter shot, they have their outer work shot from pretty much any position. They're just able to really fill up that goal real quick.
Yep, exactly. All right, so we can move on now to our next team. So 2056. I assume most of you guys have heard of this team. We talked about them earlier in the show. Undoubtedly a competitive robot, just like 195. They can shoot from a lot of different shooting positions, so it's going to be very hard to defend against them. So they can also play any role in the team. They have a hanger. Their intake's been fine-tuned from throughout the season, and it definitely works well now. And yeah, definitely going to be competitive IRI, so I put them as my number one.
And I put them as my number two, only to 195. 2056, once again, a very versatile robot, as Griffin said. They have so many shot positions. They have a great coach. They have a great driver. And, they are on an IRI win streak. So they won 2012, 2013, 2014, or not 2012. They won 2013, 2014, 2015. So this will be their fourth win if they do pull out the win. They're just such a strong team. They're always able to be an impact in every single elimination match that they've ever been in. I think they're going to be great.
Yep. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to go into talking about the top underrated teams in our opinion. So maybe teams that haven't gotten the recognition they deserve this season or overall. And we'll just talk about some of those robots. We have different teams based on what we've seen. So these ones aren't ranked, but we'll talk about all of them anyways.
So our first team is 133, and they are from New England. And these guys are really, really strong. They're probably like top 10 in my opinion of IRI, and people just don't talk about them enough, in my opinion. They were New England finalists, and they were Carver finalists as well, losing to the eventual world champions of 330, 2481, and 120. So they have a really nice catapult, really accurate. They're making their shots very well. Their pickup's pretty decent. Just all around solid team. And I think, anybody that is able to do that, put that kind of ball output, like 8 balls, 9 balls, it's going to be really strong consistently, that is.
Yeah. I don't have much to add. I didn't have the pleasure of watching them too often because I didn't watch that district of regionals, and I was volunteering on Tesla and not Carver. But from what I've seen, their match videos, they're definitely competitive robot. They have a hang too, which is really nice, and I don't think they've gotten the recognition that they've deserved because I haven't really heard them being talked about frequently within the FRC community. So definitely someone to watch for at IRI.
These guys, I would definitely expect to see them at least in semifinals. They're just that strong.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. So,
next team.
Yeah, next on our list, so 3481. Really nice robot. Kind of looks a bit like 1241 in both color and the fact that it's a tall robot. Definitely a super consistent shooter. Intake's really nice. It centers the ball, which I definitely appreciate because that helps you get into the shooter quite nicely. They're good at breaching. Not much they're not good at, and definitely one of the top, in my opinion, one of the more accurate shooters in FRC Stronghold. So definitely going to be competitive at IRI. And yeah.
Yeah, I noticed this team starting at the regional level actually really start to pick up their game, and they've definitely been doing a lot of improvement. They've improved since their last competition. This competition is the TRI, so they ended up taking out 148, 118, and 57. Which is really impressive considering that 148 and 118 are both very, very strong robots, and I don't think they get as much recognition as they would. They were on the Newton field, where they got knocked out in the quarters, I believe, unfortunately. But again, hard field to be on. Newton was very strong. But yeah, I mean their shot is just so good. They're pretty resistant to the defense, as you can see. 57 is definitely no slouch with the defense, and they're definitely pouring it on. And 3481 still able to score. The one thing that I'll be looking for, hopefully, is for them to pull out a scoring autonomous mode at IRI. I think that will really put them in the top echelon of teams and definitely make a huge impact. They also have a hanger as well, so very strong team.
All right, so next on our list is 1058, so PBC Pirates. At the beginning of the season, I didn't have super high expectations with them, to be honest. They weren't a bad breacher, but they only low-goaled. But throughout the season, they've worked to improve their high goaler, and they've definitely showed continuous improvement throughout the season, and not a ton to add about them, but they were a Battle Cry quarterfinalist, which is not an easy event, so definitely something to be recognized for.
Yeah, and for the Battlecry Alliance, I would definitely say that they're probably they were the strongest team on that alliance. They were paired up with 3467 and 1073. I do know that they've been having a lot of struggles with small things that have a large impact that caused them to not seed well recently at Worlds and at Battlecry. So I think hopefully they've worked out all their kinks, and I think they'll put out a strong showing. They're able to get that nice close shot, right to the tower and put that shot in really, really accurately. So teams that are able to do that, I think, are going to be super desirable come eliminations and possibly seed well, depending on their schedule.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. So we can move on now. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing I wanted to talk about, these guys were on my list. They weren't that well known because of they were basically low goaling for most of the season, even though they were able to pick up district wins with the Boston district. They were still pretty on a low rated just because we're low goaling, but really good drivers, able to pull out the wins when they need to.
All right, so next team, so 3683, so Team Dave. They started their season strong with a GTRC win. As we mentioned earlier, they're a super competitive low goaler, although they do not do high goal. As we mentioned earlier, the tower strength is being raised to 12 goals, so I think they'll really benefit from this in carrying some of the weaker alliances at IRI and really ensuring that you get to capture every time. Probably one of my favorite low goalers just because they're extremely fast at cycling. Their drivers are pretty great and an efficient breacher. As a bonus, they also have a hang, so definitely going to be competitive at IRI and should not be short-term just because they low goal.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the pleasure of driving against 3683 in 2014 multiple times, and I can definitely say that the driver's really adept. He knows what he's doing. He's been driving for 4 years now, almost, I think, 3 or 4 years, and really aggressive on the field, not afraid to bump and get in there and make sure that they make the right plays. And when I believe on Galileo they put through a whole bunch of balls until they were close to the breach, and then they were, or the capture, sorry, and then they went to go play defense, as you'll see in their video. But they just make sure that they get that capture so that they're good for the end of the match, and then once that's good, then they go and try and harass the other team. But yeah, one of the things that really impressed me about Dave too, especially at like super high like competitive regionals, like e.g. Waterloo, like they seeded really high. They seeded higher than 148. They picked 148, and they were able to keep it really close between when they did get eliminated by 610 and 1241 with only one high goal shooter with 148. 148 obviously being super strong, but it's no small feat to take a match off of 1241 and 610 together. Pulling off that just speaks to their strategy team and their driving ability.
Yep. All right. So next on our list, 5460 Strike Zone. This team was not on my list, but it was on Brennan. So Brennan, do you want to start with them?
Yep. So 5460 is a Michigan team. They are super underrated. I feel like lots of teams, people don't know who they are, especially it happens with high number teams. So when you hear a 5,000 team number, you kind of go, oh, well, they can't possibly be that great. But geez, these guys are amazing. They were finalists at the Michigan District, and that wasn't a fluke. And they were Carson semifinalists. They lost to I believe the finalists at Carson, or maybe it's Carver. Can't remember. Anyways,
they were on Carver, yeah.
Yeah. So really strong team, really great lineup. As you can see, they have their nice flashlight to make sure that they get their shots. They're pretty quick on their feet, and like basically the thing that really impressed me about them is the fact that they're just able to unload these shots like nobody's business if nobody's playing defense on them. So they're almost a must-play defense on a team. They're just, you can't leave them. They're gonna outscore some like top teams if they're able to just run these cycles like they are doing in this specific match. Just I don't know how many balls it's been. That's been like 6 at least already. You know, just being able to unload that many balls. 7. That's a lot of points, and you can't just let them go. And they haven't missed any shots here.
Good. So, efficient cycler. One thing, they also speak very well to the quality of Michigan District. So they ranked 26th at the Michigan State Championship, but meanwhile on Carver they ranked 6th. I cannot pronounce my 6th today, but they've definitely been a strong team throughout, and they definitely held their own in both Michigan and in Carver.
And they also have a hanger at the they really have a full package. They're able to do extremely well in their matches. Yeah.
All right. So moving on. So 16 Bomb Squad. I'll start with these guys because I was extremely excited for their robot at the start of the season. Amazing reveal. They looked extremely amazing. And when we got to watching them at regionals, I'd say they sort of lived up to that. Their drivetrain was definitely quite as amazing as their reveal. They have a very good driver that can handle swerve drive very well. So they were a really good breacher. But the biggest problem they had was with their shooter accuracy. So they miss a lot with that. But definitely, if they can fix their shooter accuracy, and I'm confident that's something they've been working on throughout the off season and throughout the season, then they will be aggressive. Even with what they did was they resorted to low goaling because they kept on being defended against their high goal. So they were still able to pull off 2 regional wins, and that definitely speaks to the quality of their drivetrain, being able to maneuver around others, and the quality of their breaching abilities.
Yeah, I mean, 16 again is a really smart team. They're like, oh my goodness, phone. But they're a really strong team that's able to decide to make the shots when they can, when they're being undefended. You just can't leave them undefended. They're so agile around the the field, as you can see. They just, with that swerve, and when they're undefended, they do make those shots, and they know when to switch to low balls when they are being defended. So I expect good things from them.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to our last team, 4967. I did not have them on my list. They were another Michigan team, and I think Brennan will start with this one.
Yeah, so 4967 is that one team from Michigan, and once again, one of those hard team numbers that you may have not heard about, and they're really strong. They're probably one of the simpler robots on our list, but they have a really nice shot, and it just works really, really well. Whoa. As you'll see in the video. The thing that really impressed me is similar to 5460 is that they're able to pull out their shots and make sure that they hit them every single time, basically. They have a really nice shot trajectory where it's basically straight line, so they can make their shot really well. Really simple robot, similar to a lot of other teams where they have two like wheels on the sides so that they're able to pick up the ball pretty smoothly and just fire from the same mechanism. But yeah, I expect really good things for them. They're maybe like not a top tier team, but once again, similar to 5460 or 16, right? If you leave them undefended, they're just going to fill up that high goal, and you're going to be in some trouble. As you can see, they've already put up like 4 balls, and it's not even halfway through the match. So, having a team like this that on your lines is third pick is just a huge steal. You're able to have a smart driver and be able to put up like eight balls a match or something crazy when they're on their game, yeah, that's kind of 4967.
Adding on to what Brendan said about 4967, they've had a competitive performance, high ranking throughout the season. In Hopper, they went on and they got to semis, so they lost to 971, which is definitely a competitive robot. And they were finalists in 971 was finalist in their division, so definitely an exciting performance that will hopefully continue throughout IRI.
Definitely.
All right, so that wraps it up with our underrated teams. What we're going to do now is we're going to move to what we call this or that section. So we're going to pose a question, and then we're going to say if we all side with option A or option B. Brennan and I may disagree at times. Maybe we'll agree, and we'll see what happens.
All right, so the first one that we have a few slides, and basically, is a 5-ball auto doable? So is it going to happen in IRI? Yes or no? And I guess I'll go first. For IRI, I think it's what we see a lot of these teams that are coming out with these new 2 balls like 179 and high voltage 4587, I think. Pulling out these 2 balls and really showing that they are able to do this with the relaxed rule set. And a lot of people are wondering whether or not the 5 ball is doable. My thoughts are I'm gonna have to go with B, no. I think it might happen maybe once if we're lucky. I'm kind of basing this off of the accuracy of like a regular 2-ball auto, just under the low bar, and the fact that like teams like 254 or like 987 aren't able to pull it off, like maybe like they're 60 or 70% accurate maybe on the low bar. Once you add that extra obstacle with maybe these teams that are not as prepared, possibly, I really question the fact of all 5 balls able to hit their mark in a match. I think it might happen once. As I posted on Chief, I think it'll happen 0 to 1 times, and that 0 of them will actually affect the match, or like that extra ball will have like influenced the match score from a loss to a win. At the same time, I think it is viable because you'll see a lot more 4-ball autos. So like 2 people running 2 balls and a single ball, and you'll hit 4 of them and you'll miss 1, which is still really good. And if you do hit the 5, then that's great. But I don't think it's going to happen, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to side with Brennan on this one. Also, I think a lot of teams have been kind of making a lot of low bar based autos where they capture the boulder from the center line and then they put it to the side and they grab the other and they come back. And so a lot of teams may have this similar sections on where they want to run their autonomous, and that's just going to result in not even being able to run two ball autos in a match. And on top of that, there's accuracy. So if there is a situation where you can, what are the odds that it actually works out, that you get that 4 and then that your last partner follows through? So I don't see it happening. I think we'll see a few 4-ball autos, but no 5-ball autos.
All right, so we're both in agreement for that one. Is defense played best in the A, courtyard, or B, neutral zone / secret passageway? All right, Griffin, go for it.
Yeah. I'll start with this one. So I'm going to side with B, so neutral zone and secret passage. So basically, with courtyard, you have a chance of stopping their scoring flow because you can get in the way of the robot, perhaps with outerworks. But with defending the secret passage, you have a guaranteed lockdown on their what is really outputting all of their boulders. And especially with what Brian was saying earlier about how you're basically able to lock down the secret passage if you utilize that. It's becoming even more valuable to defend on the secret passage because you're completely blocking their output or source of scoring items. And on top of that, you're also closer to a capture point, so there's less of a chance of, let's say you're defending in their courtyard and they decide to turn on you or kind of slow you down from getting to your tower and preventing you from capturing. So it's a bit of a safer play and completely wrecking their scoring chances.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think that the neutral zone and secret passageway defense is super overpowered. And one sec, gotta change the setting. I think it's going to become hopefully the norm if teams are on the ball with their strategies and able to pull it off, because such a chokehold, or not a chokehold, but like a choke point in the match flow, all their balls come through the secret passageway, and if you know that all 3 robots basically, if they're scoring, are going to head to that position, and if you're able to disrupt that, you can have 1 robot easily block 3 robots, where the courtyard, you're probably only going to be able to do 1 and 2 if you're really, really lucky. So neutral zone, especially in front of the secret passageway defense, is definitely the way to go, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so moving on. So next one. So will a world champion win IRI, and yes or no? So I am going to side with no here. Just because the pool of teams like IRI is A, really aggressive, and B, very compact. So everyone's very close in skill, especially in a game where you've been forced to follow certain limits, like you can only shoot from a certain range from the tower and that kind of thing. So I think because of this really compact set of teams, I'd find it very unlikely that a world champion wins IRI. Not saying that's not possible, because the winners were good teams and they could end up winning, but I think with 69 teams and the world champions only making up a few of them, I think the odds are low.
For me, I guess I will also side with no, unfortunately. As much as I am a fan of 2481, the statistics are not on my side. It's much more likely that a world championship or world champion will not win an IRI. I think they have a really good shot, and if they can find, if they do have a good schedule, and if they do find some good partners, I think they can definitely go all the way pretty easily. But again, there's so many great teams. It's hard to make that call before seeing the match schedule or seeing the rankings or seeing the alliances.
Yep. All right, so last question for this or that. So which robot is more ideal? So A, a high-level low goaler with a hang, so maybe something like Team Dave, or B, an average-level high goaler with no hang. So what are a lot of teams that we've seen this season? So I'm going to side with option A, but dependent on the scenario, but I'll get to that after. So high-level low goaler, just because although you're not scoring as many points, you're consistently scoring in the logo with extremely fast cycle time, so you're getting those breach points a lot faster, as well as a hang, so 10 bonus points at the end on top of what you would get for just parking on the batter. And on top of that, you're also lowering the tower strength a lot faster. So you're working towards 2 RP faster than you would with a average level high goaler who may be crossing slower and shooting slower. However, it depends on the scenario because sometimes, let's say you're paired up with another team that shoots maybe close up on the batter, and you're an average level high goaler. If you're able to have an open shot in your average level, you may be able to hit it every time without defense. So depending on your partner, if there's someone that can possibly distract on your shot or something like that, it may be able to have something that can score on the high goal and score more points overall. And with the more points on the high goal, you'll make up for what you lose with not having a hang, which I don't think is essential to this game.
Yeah, I'm actually going to side with the high goaler for this. I think after thinking about it for a little bit longer, the high goaler is perhaps more reliable and less strategy dependent. You're going to have a better chance of somebody pulling that off, since the hang is really only worth 10 points, which is only like two high goals. Yeah. An average level high goaler is going to be able to pull out probably more than that. Barring like every other aspect of the robot being equal, I think I'd have to go with the high goaler. But there might be some low goalers that are just driver ability is stronger, or consistency, or whatever it may be, that may end up being picked before a average kind of shooter. So I think it is an uphill battle for these low goalers, but if they can show that they're extremely dominant in defense playing, they can definitely be picked up, especially as a backup robot.
Yeah, right. So that wraps up our this or that section. Overall, thank you for tuning in to our show. We'll be having a few more episodes throughout the 2016 year. So we'll be covering several off-season events, mainly in Canada, but we may do a few mini episodes on some out of Canada or some small filler episodes in between now and the Canadian off-seasons, which tend to happen in September or so. If you have any questions, feel free to PM us on Chief Delphi, post them on the thread if you have any feedback, and message us and like us on Facebook. And Brendan, you have anything to add?
No, I think that's good. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Sorry about the technical malfunctions. Again, the visuals a bit messed up. We'll work on that for our next episode and figure out all those little bugs. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It'll be up on YouTube, and hopefully you guys learned something and have fun watching IRI.
All right, see ya.